Welcome to the creative extreme, where imagination without limitation is the only expectation.
Welcome, everyone, to the very first episode of the Abbott and the Artista. I'm Christopher Ickpo, aka The Artista, and with me is the co-host and co-founder and co-god of Creative Extreme, Stephon Thomas, aka The Abbott,
What?
representing the Bronx, the Boogie Down. Thank you everyone again for joining us or for watching if you're tuning in to this recording. Man, it's been a long time coming.
Yes, it has. We've been working at this project. I mean, we're going to get all into it real quick and give you guys the introduction and the origin story of how this
Yeah.
came to be. But it's been a while. It's been a while. We are you know, uh creative minds trying to make it in this creative world. So but yeah, this is the latest endeavor, and like, man, we're just excited to share some fun stories. I guess that could be where we kind of start. It's like, what's this gonna be about? What is the where does the title, the artist, the art the sorry the artista, the Abbott and the Artista, where does that come? Did I get it right? Oh
Yeah,
man, I must.
yeah. Yeah, baby artist. Well, you know. Um, but so just kind of going back a little bit, Steph does this, right? He's been doing that. The creativity, the imagination without limitation, the writing, the screenplays, the scripts, the stories, and all that. Steph has been doing this. My road was different, and we'll get into it, and all
Talk
that
about all that.
detail. But I started calling you the Abbott because you were the one who put me on to the game and schooled me to how it works and what's expected of a creator, of a writer, and really kind of how to do things the right way. So, I always saw it as like, kind of that scene from Kill Bill when she was up on the mountaintop or the hilltop or whatever with May punching that wood board, busting her hand open. That was me busting my head against my laptop and trying to figure things out, you know what I'm saying, from the beginning on how to do this the right way. But you schooled me through all that and got me to, the point where I was like, okay, like I can function now. I can get down with
Right.
my thing. So and I feel like you being the Abbott and putting me through that training and getting me through that created the Artista. Like
Right.
I
Yeah.
was a writer before. I did a lot of short story stuff, a lot of poetry stuff, a lot of journaling, a lot of this, and I did the novel or whatever. But it was all passion work. It was all just I'm getting my ideas out and I'm doing it. But then going through training with the Abbott, that transformed me from just being an aspiring writer or someone who just had a crazy imagination into being the artista. So that's how I view it. But
And
you
well,
let me
then
know.
going from the other side, then you as the artista just makes so much sense because, like, I've worked with a lot of like aspiring writers and everything like that. And I tell people, and I use you as like an example with everybody I'm working with. I'm like, yo, if you're gonna do this, then like I'm gonna drop some stuff on you, and you gotta like actually go do it. Like, you can't just be like, somebody will bring me their story and they'll be like, hey man, I just need you to like go through it and make sure it's ready to show to the world. And I'm like, I go through it and I'm like, it's not ready to show to the world. You'll have to do X, Y, and Z to get it ready. And then I never hear from that person again. Like, you, on the other hand, was like, I was like, all right, X, Y, and Z. And then you came back to me with A, B, C, D, E, F, G, X, Y, Z. It's like you were like, I'm ready. Let's go.
Yeah.
So like I tell you all the time, it's like, yo, you gotta do, because that's what was done to me, like as I was learning and as I'm still learning, people, they say, like, all right, if you want to make this better, if you want to make this piece of writing better, you know, if people haven't recognized now, we're talking about writing. I think you mentioned it, you know, but
Yeah.
you know, and everything. You mentioned it a couple of times, but if my writing was gonna get better, I have to be able to take constructive criticism. You know, I have to be able to take, like, you know, it's just like anything else. You gotta practice, you gotta go through the reps, you know. So when I started working with you and like we just had these crazy long conversations about the process and what you were
Yeah.
trying to accomplish and how you would end. And I was like, dude, you're like you're an artist. You are an artiste, you know, and everything. And then of course it came from, you know, one of the initial stories that you and I went through together about your character, you know, the Artista. And I was like, well, there it is, you know. So however, if someone reads the Artista, I hope you're not that kind of Artista. I hope you're not like plotting on my demise.
Nah. So he's referring. One of the first things we worked on was the series I was writing called Confessions of a Serial Killer, and the serial killer's name was the Artista, or moniker was the Artista. In that, there's no serial killing going on. Unless we're talking about killing stories and killing the game with, you know, unprecedented creativity and imagination and writing skills. Yeah, I'm a serial killer in that sense, but yeah, no, not like that Artista, no.
So yeah, so that's the Abbott and Artista, you know. And I mean, you know, since you know we met, I guess, you know, we can go into a little bit of our story of how we met. We met back
Yeah,
in college.
23 years
And
ago. So y'all
you're like,
know.
whoa, 20 something years ago. That's crazy. But we
Yeah.
met back then in college. We played basketball together. Chris here was the star of the team that season, and I was the third string point guard. I got in at garbage time. I got in when we was blowing teams out. You know, I was like the best cheerleader ever. You know what I'm saying?
But practice though. What went down in practice though?
What practice? Scout squad, white team, baby.
All out war. All out war with the scout team in practice every single day. Captain by Stephon Thomas.
every single every single day. It was like, all right, starters, we're about to give y'all some fits right now. We're gonna take it to you, you know. So it was, I mean, so we had a great team going that year, man. We won so many games. We came at teams because the college we went to, Oberlin College, was not known for its athletic prowess. You know, we had a lot of teams that had been losing for a long time. It was very academic school, very, you know, like artistic school, a lot of artists there, a lot of kids who weren't, you know, your traditional jock athletes when they were, you know, back in high school would come to, Oberlin. So, you know, it was hard to get a lot of athletes there, right? But the years that, you know, Chris and I got there, Oberlin team started winning some games. We started winning basketball games. We started winning football games. Our track team was getting good. Our soccer team was getting good.
Yeah.
You know, it was like,
Yeah.
oh snap, Oberlin's got a little juice now. You know, so. But I went to Oberlin for creative writing and English. So I came out of school. I got my first job was at American Greetings, which I'll have stories for that like in the later episodes. So I was working at American Greetings, writing greeting cards for a living. And then after about 4 years there, do some different, you know, circumstances, good stuff, nothing bad. That, you know, I had to move on from American Greetings. I started doing freelance because my ultimate goal had always been to get into screenwriting. That was my love. Ever since I was at Oberlin, I wanted to do, I was training short stories, but I wanted to do screenwriting. And so I started just doing freelance writing as I was working on my own screenplays, as I was learning more and everything. And then, so I'm starting to do freelance as far as like editing for people and editing their work and helping them get their projects going. And all of a sudden I get hit up by my boy Chris, and Chris is like, "Hey man, I wrote enough. What I don't even remember what year was that. It must have been like 11 or 12, something like,
It's like 12, yeah, 12,
like
2012, I think.
2012, something like that. The first time you hit me up, and and Chris was like, "Hey man, you know, I got a novel, and I'd love for you to like take a look at it and everything, and let me know." And I'm like, "Oh, okay, yeah, cool. Like yes, send it on through." You know, I'm expecting to get, 100,000 words, nice
Yeah.
little, everything like that. I get a 500-page behemoth, like 400,000 words, just an epic saga that goes across lifespans and timelines and dimensions. And I'm like, what is going on? It
That
had
joint was
so much.
stacked. It was stacked. Yeah, it was.
Yeah, it was like reading George R. R. Martin, man. It was I was like, this was like Game of Thrones. It was wild. And I was like, so then we began talking about it and talking about the different things and how, like, man, you just got so many worlds, so many characters, such a vivid imagination, such, so many different ideas. And so at the time, it was getting around 2000, we worked on it and we worked on different projects, and Chris and I were throwing work back and forth to each other and talking about writing and everything. And then around 2014, 2015, I was like, man, I'm working on a screenwriting thing, but I want to get some stuff out there for people to see while I'm working on it. One of my mentors had told me, you got to get some other things out there. So I said, all right, well, what's it going to be? So I started kind of developing this website where it's like, oh, it's a character factory. All these characters that I had from different screenplays that I had worked on. I was like, well, maybe if I put them in the same world, Marvel and DC were beginning to take off, as these big new, universes and everything. And I was like, oh, maybe I can do something like that, right? So I said, man, if I could do something where it could put out a bunch of characters for the world to see, right? And just kind of tell stories about them. So then I said, well, I know a guy who has a bunch of characters. What if my characters got with his characters and we could have a big family of characters and create this universe? So I called up Chris and I said, hey, man, here's the idea. Let's put some characters out, to the world and everything. And that was, the impetus of how we started officially collaborating together on stories, on projects, on, what would eventually become this universe of characters that, we'll tell you all about.
Yep.
And since then, and then that's when it was like 2015, we started in earnest, just really kind of figuring out what this creative world looks like. And in 2016, we launched the Creative Extreme. We got it popping, and so then it was on, man. And then it was on. The rest is, as they say, history.
And so it's crazy because if you would have asked me way back, when I graduated, I would be doing this today. I was like, nah, man, nah. Like, it would have been not the furthest thing from my mind, but like it wasn't even in the top probably 50 possibilities of what I thought I would be doing, But the 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 novel you talked about, I started writing that senior year. And I was working at Oberlin, living in the dorm, which at nighttime, 0 people are there on campus already, right, during the summertime. But at nighttime, when I would go to the bathroom, it was the hallway from The Shining. That's what it looked like every single time I stepped out of my room to go to the bathroom. It was wild. So I don't know, there was just something there, like, yo, there was an energy like, yo, get to writing and get this down. And I started handwriting that joint.
What?
I started handwriting that joint.
I did not know that.
I started handwriting it. I was talking to my guy who was also there that summer. I was telling him about it. He's like, yeah, you should keep going. I hand wrote like the first, like maybe 30 or 50 pages or something. Man. And I was doing all the designs by hand, drawing like the kanji symbols and stuff for the story. And it was wild. And then I was like, I don't know what it was, because I had a desktop, I had a computer, so I could have been typing, but there was just something about that process of pen to paper, and writing and actually getting the ideas out that way, and doing it in a way where it was like, I was crossing stuff out and changing stuff, and as all writers do, you change stuff as you go. But there was just something about that manual process of doing it that just kind of hooked me into like, okay, this is this is what it is. Like this is what you really love doing. And then over the years, obviously, I went to digital, right? I went to laptop and desktop and all that kind of stuff. But and
Well,
even after that, I was like, just thinking like this is just a project. I just want to
mhm.
write, so I'm just writing this book.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
wasn't
Tell
until
people what you do for your day job.
so well, I graduated from Oberlin with a pre-law and religion double concentration, and then I went into the legal field. I was a paralegal for the state of New Jersey. Shout out to Trenton, shout out to Jersey, and my people out there, because that was a great time out there. The Trenton is, I mean, I had great people I was working with. But then after that, into sales because I moved back to Chicago, got into sales, bottom floor, 100, phone calls a day, grunt work,
Woo.
boiler room type stuff. And just over the years, kept working my way up the ladder, became a team leader, became a sales manager, all this kind of stuff. Then I got, then I found this job with a finance company for an assistant vice president role, got that role, and became a VP. I think I was 32 when I first became a vice president. And then I was working for Bank of America for a number of years, and now I'm with P Morgan as a vice president for them, and that's my day job. But again, so you see the road though. Like there's no creative writing, there's
Just,
no there's no
you
how
leave all numbers, no
we're
letters.
in there.
All numbers, no letters.
All numbers, no letters, man. It was, but it was a completely different road. But overall, those years I kept writing on the side, because it was something that I loved to do. But it wasn't until I linked back up with you again, and you were like, yo, I got this idea where we do something where we release one character for every single day of the year. And I was like, yo, let's do it. And it wasn't even like, it wasn't even until like, you're bugging.
Yeah, yeah.
One character every day of the year. It was just like I've never even thought about that before. That's an incredible idea. Like, let's go, let's do it.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like let's do it and let's plan and then we'll make it happen and then we'll release it once everything is done. You were like, yo, if it was Friday, you were like, yo, let's start on Monday.
Yeah, and
You know what
the
I'm
crazy
saying?
thing about it is that like I got the idea from an artist friend who was doing like a doodle a day, right? And
Yeah.
he's, like, of course it takes a lot of talent to do that, but it doesn't take that much time to like, hey, sit down, take a half an hour if you've already got the skill, to do a doodle a day and put it out. And I was like, oh yeah, let's do that, but with like entire short stories, entire images, and do it every single day, and like you said, to your credit, you jumped on immediately. You was like, let's do it.
That's a no-brainer. Yeah, that's a no-brainer. And
Yeah.
so and I remember when because I was thinking about this earlier, when I was thinking about what we were going to talk about.
Yeah.
This. And so we were getting started. In like December, I think 2015 is when we really sat down because you had your stuff. You were like, all right, da, da, da.
Yeah.
I had my stuff, boom, boom, boom. And then in December 2015, you were like, okay, let's start, let's really start lining up the release schedule for January. And I think you had like the first 15 to 20 days, you
Yeah.
already had it booked. You were like, yo, I got the stories, I got the characters, I got the artwork and everything. Like we can come out straight January 1st. We don't gotta wait. Like we can just come out with a bang. And I was like, all right, bet. And then it was me, you, and Jamal. Shout out to Jamal. Jamal was like, I think you and Jamal had talked in the beginning of January because you had hit me
Yeah.
up and you were like, yo, we're thinking that we should get going on some, samurai and or ninja type storyline.
That's
Do you
right.
think you could tackle that? And I was like, well, one, I took East Asian studies in college, so that's an area of interest. Two, I was like, rest in peace to my pops. My pops was Nigerian from Nigeria, came over here when he was 17, was in love with American pop culture. I was watching all these samurai, kung fu, ninja movies from the moment I was able to even breathe. Like I was watching rated R movies where the fuck I should have been. That was family movie night. But all those joints, the Van Damme joints, Steven Seagal, Schwarzenegger, Stallone,
Mm.
Bruce Willis, Carl Weathers, and to Bruce Lee joints, to freaking, Shoko Sugi. This is a deep cut here for my, you know what I'm saying, from my film people
Yeah.
who are into martial art movies and stuff like that. My boy Shoko Sugi and the ninja movies from back in the 80s. I'm watching all these joints. So I'm like, dude, a samurai ninja story, like I'm all over that. Then I started working on that as we were releasing your stuff in the
And the
beginning.
second half of
We
the
got
month.
to
Yep.
January, but we're kind of getting into the process now. Tell the people
Yeah.
the process of how we did it, because we were doing it in real time. Like I
Yeah.
said, we didn't plan
Yeah.
and do it
So
all and then release it.
right. Well, I mean, that's the thing, just kind of bringing it back a little bit, what we're talking about here, because I don't think we have even actually like said exactly what it is.
Okay, yeah.
Project 365 was a project in which we created and released one character for every day of the year. Hence Project 365. The idea behind it was to write a short story involving each character and then get a piece of art commissioned for each character, just one piece of art for each character. So basically, we looked up all these artists. I used some of my connections from American Greetings, and then we just started going on Instagram and DeviantArt and all these places and finding artists who would be willing to just be like, yeah, I'll draw this image. And we paid everybody. It was like we wanted to commission, and because we were getting so much art from these guys and gals, they were giving us great deals. They were like, oh yeah, I'll do 10 images for a very cheap, very affordable price, as long as you keep throwing me work. In which we did. We needed 365 images. So basically we wrote short stories, but then we got the idea to connect the stories and saying, like, it's not just here's a character and here's a story. It's like, here's a character, here's a story, here's another character, and how they continue the story is another character and how they continue that story. So then we began to plan out, each month, or, as we plan out the months, the weeks and the months, the character stories would coincide with each other. So each character would have an image of the character, their kind of origin story and backstory, but also how their story relates to the rest of our universe that we were building, along with power rankings and specs and all that. We did the whole like Marvel trading card thing or whatever with the back with the back of the card with the power rankings. But the idea is that if you read through Project 365, you would get pretty much a 365 chapter story. And that's kind of what Project 365, and we did that during 2016. And we'll tell you about what came after that in later episodes, because we don't want this one. We want to give you a taste and everything. But that's what Project 365 is. And then, as Chris was about to say, we didn't prepare it and then release it. We did it in real time as we're going. Like we were on our best at our best times, we were maybe 2 to 3 weeks out.
Yeah.
And it was also a challenge of getting the art from the artist. We would have to describe the characters, send it out to the artist. But first, we got to come up with the characters and the story. Then we describe the characters in emails and send it out to the different artists. We worked with over 50 freelance artists to bring this project to life. We send it out, and then we'd have to wait and hope the art came back in time, because this character is going out on January 17th and it's January 15th, and we don't have the art yet.
So yeah, we would sometimes be 2 to 3 weeks ahead. Other times we were one day.
The
night before. I remember time it was the night before. And I was like, yo, did you get that artwork in yet? And you're like, nah, I reached out, I don't have it yet. And we would get like the morning of, right?
Yeah.
And then we would put it all together and release it that afternoon or whatever.
Get it up on a website and on the social. Yep. And then there were other times where we were writing the night before too, where we was like, okay, it's like, you're gonna have that story ready. It's like, I'm working on it right now. Not because we have lives, we both have families and kids, and we'll tell you all about that, in due time. But yeah, we were running, and we will admit there were a couple of times when we got a little behind, and we'd have to like release 2 or 3 characters to catch back up.
Yeah.
So, and everything, but we got the project done, and it came out, and we have, the stories we have from just that year alone, that's going to be a lot of what this podcast is going to be about. The stories of, because I guess that's the general idea. It's our creative journeys that we're on right now, both as individuals and as a team, and how we are trying to make it in this entertainment business. We have huge aspirations, and we've made a lot of steps moving toward that. But we have so many stories about discovering our own creativity, discovering how to work with creatives, crazy stories about working with different artists and other people who are involved, who helped us kind of get to where we were, relationships that we no longer have, that persist to this day. So it was a great adventure. And so it was fun. We have a ton of stories about
I want to get into some of those stories, and I figure we can just kind of go through it, touch on a couple of them. Two of them, there's two memories from January 2000 that stand out to me. One, I had three actually, because I already told one about the whole Ninja Samurai storyline and how that came to be. But the first one is when we started releasing things online, right? We put it up on the website and we put it up on social media. I remember being in my office, and I don't know if you texted me first or if I texted you. I think you texted me first, and you were like, "Yo, who the fuck is this guy?" And it was the moment when we got our first hater. Do you remember this? We had posted
the first hater. Yes.
Posted something.
Yes.
And this lets you know what the world is like, okay? Especially on the internet. We just got started. This is January. We're not even a full month into it yet. We already had people hating. But this guy left a hating ass comment on one of the posts, and you were like, "Who is this guy?" And I'm like, "I don't know, man, but we got to be doing something if we got people."
We got a hater. We had our first hater. It was on, the character's name was Anarchy.
Was it Anarchy?
It was Anarchy. We put out, I think, right? It's like we put out Anarchy, and Anarchy was done by an artist who only did a couple of images for us. And it was a little bit of it was the art was very rough. It was kind of like grungy and rough. Yeah. It wasn't super polished. It was just kind of like, it wasn't clean like you would think of clean. It was it was like scratchy. I've described it as scratchy almost. Yeah. And some guy was like, "This character is terrible," or something like that. He's like, "What is this?" It's like, and I'm like, and I'm texting Chris. I was like, because they hit me in my heart a little bit. I was like, does this guy hate him? It's like, it was like, it's like, I thought hate was like reserved for super popular things that everyone knew about it. We had like 200 followers, and they were all our friends and family. And then this random guy it's like, what is it? It's like, what is this? It's like, how did you find us, and why are you hating on us?
This one post made you feel a certain kind of way so intensely that you had to leave a comment.
You had to leave a comment.
You had to leave a comment about how much you did not like this character. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. Hater, man. Hater. So that was funny. That was definitely funny, because I was like, all right, I guess when you put our stuff out there, we gotta expect people to have opinions. Like, that's
gonna happen.
That's the life.
The hate is gonna come, and the hate, trust me, the hate hasn't stopped.
Yeah. We've
been getting hate from wherever they were at in the world over the years. I will say, not a lot of hate.
Not a lot of hate. We get a lot more love. We definitely get a lot
way more love than we get hate.
Way more love. But the hate stories are fun.
The hate stories are fun, and like I said, it's the internet, so the hate stories are always gonna be there. The other memory from January I had was Ashtar. Do you remember Ashtar? The Ashtar Ramses fiasco?
Oh, man. Tell the people about Ashtar.
So we were planning, again in the future for other characters. We have a character by the name of Ramses the Pharaoh Hondo. He's one of our big kind of pillar villains. in our universe, and he is essentially, if you could imagine, Dwayne Johnson, an Egyptian Dwayne Johnson in like the most just wicked optical armor. He
Yeah, it's
is the
muscles
yeah,
and
just
yeah,
jacked, imposing
yeah,
figure. He's the
very imposing.
leading
Imposing is the right word. He's supposed to
imposing,
be
yes,
incredibly imposing.
incredibly imposing character. And we send out the details, right? And normally, like what the details include, a lot of the times what we would send was here's their height, right? Here's their weight, hair color, eye color, skin tone,
Yeah. Comparison to
attire,
popular characters. It's like this
right?
character meets that character,
Yeah,
or
that
this
kind of
act,
stuff.
or looks like this actor, maybe.
Right, exactly. And so from the description we just gave you of Ramses, right? An Egyptian Dwayne Johnson in just crazy tactical gear and the most imposing figure you've ever seen. We get back an image from this particular artist of a bronze garden gnome who couldn't have been no more than 3.5 feet tall, barely could see his legs,
Yeah.
midriff
His
area.
legs, his legs were like this. He was not wearing tactical gear. He was wearing like a bathrobe. So,
I remember it just, I remember clear as yesterday. I was driving down Irving here in Chicago. I hit you up and I'm like, yo, did you see the Ramses artwork? And you were like, let me pull it up. You pulled it up and you were just like, oh no, man.
what is going on? And then I was so bad. I went back and read the email that we sent to make sure that we had sent what I thought we had.
Right.
It was so
Steph reaches back out to the artist. Steph had the relationship with the artist. Steph reaches back out to him and he says, hey man, just saw the artwork. Can you make the character taller? He's got to be tall, right? Do you make him taller, more imposing? Like, we have a very, very specific description for him. This isn't really what we're looking for. Can you just kind of rework it? Very understandable that Steph would say that this guy after what he sent us. The guy was like, cool, all right, cool, I'll rework it. The next version we get, he's what, maybe 2 inches taller?
No. The next version we get is exactly the same, except for he's lengthening the legs a little. he just like, all right, they just made the legs a little bit longer.
It's like, right, yo, what is? But at this point, and this is something that you all will learn throughout this podcast, is coming from the corporate world and the corporate finance world. My view on how to deal with situations like this at that time, just starting out, was very different than how Stefan knew how to handle these type of situations. Because in my mind, I'm thinking, this guy's getting paid to do this. And he is now completely ruined this artwork twice. My man's got to go. He's done. Like, he's cut off. He's done. We're going to let him know about himself, how bad he failed, and then we're moving on. And he gets no more work from us. And Steph was like, well,
I was like, hey, man, he's an artist. We got to like work with them. Artists are very kind of, like artistic people are very, they're a little skittish. Their communication is very different from corporate. Like, artists generally don't do business well because they're just like, I just want to create, man. So like, and they're very sensitive souls, generally speaking. So we was like, hey, and he went on to do several other pieces for us that he did great. We continued working with him, and even worked with him as recently as last year. Like, he's continued, good dude. But we were in a pickle because we needed to release Ramses Hondo in like 2 days, right? Like, it was coming up. Like, Randy's Hondo was like on the slate. Like, he was on deck, and we was like, we don't have a Ramses Hondo image. We cannot put this out as this cannot be the image of Randy's Hondo. However, the artwork, as weird as it was still really interesting. It was really interesting artwork, like in a good way. And we was like, hey, what if we made this into another character? And so we decided to say, like, all right, this is not Ramses. This is a character named Ashtar, which is like an alien character. And but what came with that was changing the story we had planned.
So we had to rewrite the story, or we had to not even rewrite it. We had to write a whole new story.
We had to, like, from that point forward, we had to write that character into the story. So like the story that we were going to put out for Ramses, we had to push that to the side. And then we had to create a story for Ashtar, and Ashtar's presence actually, changed the rest of the trajectory of January and moving into February, and eventually be like this Ashtar character became a key character in the whole saga.
So it's wild how that works. And so another thing that leads me to the next moment I want to talk about, because it's a very similar situation. So one of the ways that Steph and I would plan or try to plan was we would have these numerous we had numerous conference calls, 4, 6, 8 hours long sometimes, sitting in front of a spreadsheet, and we're saying, okay, here's this month, row 1 is day 1, all the way down to 30, 31, 28, whatever, however many months are in the days are in the month. And we're saying this day is gonna be this character. Okay, this character's name is this, power is this is their description. Okay, and this is their story. This is how they fit into the larger overarching story that takes place. Then we would go down to the next one and do the next one, right? We would plan it out. Well, one of the months, I don't know if you remember, we did the whole planning, and we had like, I don't know if it was 1 or 2 open slots left. We're like, how are we got to fill these gaps. What are we going to fill these gaps in with? And I remember being like, well, let's give Captain Noble, one of our main characters, let's give Noble kind of a right hand, right? Somebody who he works with. That was the birth of Lieutenant General Richard Bonds. Lieutenant General Richard Bonds ends up becoming one of our main characters out of over 400 characters.
Yeah.
Is it fair to say he's maybe top 5?
He's one of the main characters of the entire saga. Absolutely.
The entire thing. And so, speak to that. Speak to those planning sessions and anything that you remember or your thoughts about, like, when you look back on it, us going through the process, how some of those fill-in dates end up just coming something way bigger than we ever planned.
Like, I mean, the whole idea of necessity is the mother of invention, right? And in this case, necessity became the mother of creativity in so many ways. When it came to those spots, we had planned out, 25 of the 30 days, right? And we said, man, we got 5 more spots. We never thought to ourselves that, we're gonna let's just slot something in just a placeholder. We were always like, all right, how can we do something fun and creative here, even if it's not completely connected to the main story? Because of course, with something this big, there's going to be offshoot stories, right? So it was like, maybe we can take a really fun little idea that we don't know exactly where to place it other places, like within the saga, and maybe put it here, maybe a little like 3 or 4 day saga, right? That just has, so we were always trying to think of something creative. And that's not to say they was always super successful. I mean, we have a ton of characters, and we have some characters that went on to be very popular, and we'll tell you all about how some of these characters have taken on lives of their own and have gone into like some great pieces of art and media and everything like that. And then we have characters who were kind of like, they're going to be your secondary, tertiary characters that help fill out the world and everything like that, and don't necessarily have like huge stories, but they have stories of their own, of course, right? And this one, when we were just sitting there, we were like, man, Captain Noble is going through, like, Captain Noble, like, when we talk about March, Captain Noble went through hell, right? He just went through everything, and we just came to that point where we was like, oh man, we got all this stuff going on, Captain Noble and everything like that, and it's like, man, what else can we put him through? There's not much left to put him through and everything. And then we're just sitting there, and we're having, like you said, these marathon sessions where we're coming up with ideas, and we're filling out this spreadsheet, and we're contacting the artists, and we're deciding which artist is going to do which character, et cetera, et cetera. And we were just like, man, what do we do with this? And then, like you said, he was like, man, like he's like, what if on this one mission he's about to go on, what if we gave him like somebody to back him up, right? He's going into a situation and we send someone in there to back him up. And Lieutenant General Rashard Bonds became that character. And he goes in, and as we are creating him and writing him and figuring him out and everything, and this is his character is one of Chris's brainchilds, and like, you know, figuring him out, his story just begins to take on all of this additional life, all of this additional context, all of this additional texture, to the point where we're like, all right, we know he was kind of a fill-in character just for this one mission, but then we came back to him. It's like a few months later, he was like, let's get Rashard Bonds. He comes back to the story, and he comes back to the story more. And then we get toward the finale at the end, and it's like, now Lieutenant Rashard Bonds is leading the charge against the it's like, so yeah, so that was that was a really cool kind of development. And that's how like that creativity, you know, works. Like, you know, because another part is, you know, just to kind of jump ahead a little bit, because, you know, my time is getting short for today, so I want to get it. But one of the things we also want to do with this podcast is we want to inspire. You know, we're going to tell you a lot of stories, but they're meant to inspire. They're meant to also give you like pointers on how to take your creativity to the next level, you know, how to like find creativity in those small places, in those little places, and how something small could become something big, but also not to be discouraged when something that you thought was so big doesn't really amount to as what you thought it would, but that you can keep going, you know, and everything. So, you know, that was, I mean, yeah, like talk about making lemonade out of lemons, man. Now,
because he went on, like Steph said, he went on, and one of the things we did was every universe, every great universe, we always feel like has a group, right? Somewhere within their roster, or somewhere within their lore, their story, so there's a group. So, you know, you look at all the massive franchises. You look at Star Wars, you got Jedi's, right? You got Sith. You look at Harry Potter, and you got you got the different houses. You got Ravenclaw, you got Hufflepuff, you got Slytherin, and you got Gryffindor. You look at obviously Marvel, you got X-Men, you have the Avengers, you got the Fantastic Four. We can go on for days and days. One of the things we did was we created not just different storylines, but the different groups. And Bonds ended up becoming the leader of the Alpha Initiative. He ends up becoming the leader of the Alpha Resistance. We go back and do another project we'll touch on later in this Alpha Initiative Zero, and he's kind of woven into all these different stories. But there's one particular, and we can end on this one, because I know this is definitely going to have to be a 2-3 part, you know what I'm saying, discussion, Project 365. But we started in January. I kind of want to bring it back to the month of February, because the month of February is unequivocally the month of the Sister Clique. The Sister Clique dominates, owns the month of February. It wasn't intended to go along with Black History Month. That does, so you get that out of your mind. There was no planning on that. But the Sister Clique, one of your many just phenomenal miniature worlds that we put inside, that you came up with, that we put inside of this. Talk about the Sister Clique and how coming out of January, we rolled into something that was really kind of different from what we did in January. The month of February, bringing in the Sister Clique, and then kind of what you wanted to do over that storyline with not just them, but the additional characters, the side characters, and even bringing in some of my characters and introducing to that month. Talk about, you know, February, the February for you.
I don't even know where to begin. So like, you know, like, I mean, yeah, we'd had some, you know, some groups in January, but like, yeah, the Sister Clique, man, like
They're a fan favorite. Every con
yeah,
we go
yeah,
to, the Sister Click
mhm,
is always on the
yeah.
top of the list
It's
of the
yeah,
people. They sell
yeah.
merch.
It's
They,
five black women with superpowers, you know, and it was kind of like one of those things where, you know, how suddenly getting superpowers like affects different people. You have five of them and how it all affected them differently. And just like, I mean, how they were, you know, how they were kind of, how it wasn't just them, you know, physically being attacked, you know, by all these different villains and enemies, and how we kind of took we did something where we took different kinds of villains and attacked them, you know, like, so it wasn't, we tried to be a little bit more untraditional, I guess, right? Because that was the month where we had the senior citizen villains, right? Like a group of senior citizens
the
that
Blue Zone
attacked
Killers.
the blue zone killers. So
Yeah.
you know, we had that. Of course, they had their different, you know, individual enemies that they dealt with throughout there. But I mean, really, like when it came to the Sister Click, it was like Avengers meets Sex in the City, but black. You know, and you know, just kind of like how these women deal with their day-to-day lives, you know, all being in these different parts, these different stages of relationships, whether it was, you know, single or, you know, they had boyfriends or fiancés or husbands, you know, and everything, and all the different characters they had, just kind of trying to flip some things on their head a little bit with that one, you know. That's like my mind goes to a lot of different places when I think about, you know, about the Sister Click, because of course one of the big stories from that one was, you know, I'm gonna make this as a teaser because I don't want to tell this story right now. I want to give it.
Yeah.
Yeah, with Jimmy the Deer. So it was a similar situation with Ashtar, but we'll tell you all about Jimmy in another episode. You know, who was a character that came out during that month. But it was cool because we actually had an artist who had worked for Cartoon Network who drew all the images for, you know, for the Sister Click, the original Sister Click images. So that was really cool. But you know, yeah, I was like, it was an opportunity to like really like this whole thing is a big sandbox, you know, and playing with the Sister, like we wanted to just throw a cavalcade of different kinds of villains at them, you know, and it was just like almost like villain of the day almost, with just different characters coming at them. I mean, I think the Sister Click was one of the months where it was very lopsided. Like the vast majority of the profiles we released were villains. It was like it was like
about that.
It was like the five profiles of the Sister Click. And then I think there was like, you know, like I said, there was Jimmy, which we'll talk about, and there was a couple of other characters, but I think like 22 of those profiles were villains, because it was just what is the Sister Click dealing with today? You know, it was
You're up against it.
Just up against it, just throwing stuff at them. But yeah, it was a fun thing. Like you said, it wasn't meant to be, you know, a coincide with Black History Month, but you know, we'll take it. We'll take it. You know, we got love for the culture.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And you know what's funny? So I was at physical therapy the other day. I had knee surgery just about a month and a half ago. So I'm at physical therapy, and you know, the guy at the front desk, one of the guys at the front desk, he asked me, he's like, "Hey, are you a cop?" Like, no. How would you think that? Oh, okay. What do you do for a living? You know, I work for JP Morgan. And, you know, I was like, but I also started a company called the Creative Extreme, and we're in comic books, graphic novels, films, you know, series, and all that kind of stuff. And we built this whole universe. We got over 400 characters, and we release one character every single day. 2016, da 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 da. And this guy used to work in TV as well. He worked for the Judge Mathis show. So he's really interested. He's asking me all these questions, and he went to the website and, you know, all this stuff. And then so I go and do my PT session, right? And I come back, and I'm getting ready to, you know, to leave. And he's like, "Hey, I went to the website, checked it out." He's like, "Are you Jimmy Spears?" And I was like, what? He's like, are you Jimmy Spears? I'm like, oh, the character? He's like, yeah, I checked out the website, I checked out your social media. He had
Wow.
just posted that image of Jimmy Spears with his daughters for Father's Day.
Yeah.
Happy Father's Day,
Yeah.
right? And he's like, yeah, I saw the social, I saw the picture of Jimmy Spears. And he's like, wow, he's like, you look just like Chris. And I was like, I mean, I kind of, but I told him I was like, nah, that was the character created by my partner, my creative partner, and he came up with the story and the imagery and all that. It's just a coincidence, right?
Yeah.
That you might think that, but I was like, no, that's not me, or whatever. But it's just so funny because that again, the Jimmy character and the story that we'll get into later, it's like that
Yeah.
one character, which started off so crazy,
Yeah.
has now come up to so many years later, 8 years later, the front desk guy at the physical therapy office is
Yeah.
like, are you Jimmy Spears? And I'm like, just to see how these characters translate to different people over
Yeah.
different spaces and different times and stuff.
Yeah, it's so
It's
funny.
wild.
Yeah, I can't wait. Like, we might have to spend the whole episode talking about Jimmy Spears and the Sister Clique, because the Jimmy Spears has taken on a whole life of its own, mostly internally. But one day the world is gonna know who Jimmy Spears is.
The world is gonna know who Jimmy Spears is.
Gonna know who Jimmy Spears is. So, but
Yeah,
hey, man, but I'm up against it. So
yeah,
hey.
yeah. Well, hey, look, this was the first episode of the Abbott The Artista. We only touched on the first 2 months of Project 365, and we barely.
And
scratched the surface.
there's a lot more to talk about just in those 2 months too. So
Right. So we're gonna come back. We're gonna dive more into January, more into February, more into the Sister Clique, more into the other months, the characters, the storylines, and all that. But again, I'm the Artista with the
I'm the
Abbott.
Abbott.
We're gonna be getting back at y'all pretty soon, all right?
All right.
Peace.
Take care.